All right, here we are. Welcome to today's video on how to use the RampWarden custom tie-down rope calculator. We're sitting at the home page for the RampWarden. It's rampwarden.com, and as you go there, you'll have the rope calculator across the top, or you can hit the button right in the middle of the page. So as we go there, it takes us to the calculator input page, and what we're looking to do is going to go ahead and input some certain variables, and then we'll hit the calculate recommendation. You can see down here the calculate recommendation, and what that will give us will be all the different rope lengths as well as some rope tension guidance of how to set our ropes and preload them once they're on the aircraft. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started. And so what you could see here is an input for your aircraft, and you have a drop down. We have 4 built in right now, which have all of the tie down geometries already set for these aircraft. But if you don't see your aircraft there, you can hit custom, and then what this will do, it will bring in some additional entries that you'll need to put in for your aircraft name, as well as the actual tie down geometry that you could put in here, and your maximum takeoff weight. So those are the parameters for the custom. When you do choose a built-in, all of those parameters will already be, like I said, locked and loaded in the tool. So let's go ahead and select the Cessna 172, and we'll go from there. We have something also called the ramp anchor configuration, and so that's we have 2 options, and that's pretty typical, I would say, of all the hard surfaced ramps that you'll see out there. Probably going to be 30 by 20 feet or 20 by 20 feet for the smaller, more tighter municipal airports. But as a 30 by 20, you can easily check that by going down to the tie down coordinate diagram. And so what do we mean by 30? Well, if you go the ground anchor on this tie down coordinate diagram, all the ground anchors are in red, and all of the wing or tail rings are in green. But if we just focus on the ground anchors, the distance between the left ground anchor and the right ground anchor is 30 feet. And then the midpoint between the two, all the way down the longitudinal axis to the tail ground anchor, is 20 feet. So that's how we, when we say 30 by 20, that's what we mean. And then if you go to 20 by 20, you can see the interactive coordinate diagram tightens, so you can see now the ground anchors are almost directly underneath the wing rings in the Cessna 172, and you can actually confirm that by looking at the left wing tip perspectives and right wing tip perspectives. Okay. And this is definitely interactive, so you could change. You could even, when you change the aircraft, you can now see it's different. You go at 20, there we go. And so if we want to go to Saratoga, and so you can kind of see how things are changing as we go. So it definitely is an interactive opportunity, but let's go ahead and go back to the 172. Next up will be the knots that you select, which will definitely have an impact on the amount of rope recommendation that's given. And so you have a drop down here, and you have a number of options that you can choose. You can choose your favorite knots for the wings and the tail wing or rings. So and then they have a knot allowance that you'll see in inches. Of course, that includes the amount of tail. So we've tied these things a bunch of times, and we know that that also includes a 4 to 6 inch allowance for the tail as well. Ground anchor, same thing. The bowline knot's probably the most common that we see at the ground anchors, but you can make your choices as well. If you use a knot and you don't see it in here, go ahead and leave a comment. We'll go ahead and get it added. We'll tie a bunch of them and see how much the knot allowance should be, and go from there. Happy to do that. Definitely. Some folks might want to modify some of these knots, and so they know that they might need another, 4 inches. You could do that. You could check extra rope 4 inches and and be able to move on. Snubber use, some people are experimenting with EPDM snubbers or traditional snubbers attached to the ropes, and if you do that, and if you are currently using snubbers on your ropes, we account for about 10 inches of rope allowance for that. So you would just toggle that on, and that will give you an additional 10 inches of rope in the calculations. The aft push from the wing ground anchors. So a lot of pilots, myself included, when we look at setting up the aircraft in relation to the ground anchor, I like to push my aircraft a little bit aft, and so you can. And what does that mean? So now you can see the aircraft has basically pushed aft, and you can kind of see the difference. It's basically from the ground anchor perspective, the wing has actually now been pushed 12 inches back, which means our tail ring is going to be closer to our tail ground anchor ring from the top down as well. So that's going to close some angles off, but I like to push it back to create a little forward tension on the ropes. You can go 24, you could also go 36, and just build in that. You go to 36 inches of an aft push. So yeah, what you're looking at there is a tail ring that's pretty virtually on top of the ground anchor from a top-down perspective, and you can kind of get a good view of what it looks like, about a 79-degree angle on a 36-inch aft push. But yeah, we'll just at this point, you could stick with the default, which is they're all in a line, which is fine. You could see this in alignment. And I know a lot of flight schools teach that, and that's fine too. So it's just personal preference and what you want. We have it built in. And so once you get there and you're satisfied with how things look from your coordinate diagrams, and you like the angles that everything's presenting for you, then it's time to calculate the recommendation. So if you come here and hit calculate recommendation, you've got some you've got this report that will pull up, and now it's telling us that the recommended rope diameter will be 1/2 inch. Tells us that would be for the maximum takeoff weight of 2,550 pounds. Because it's under 3,000 pounds, that would be the recommendation. And then from there, it does confirm our aircraft is a 172. Ramp anchor configuration is the 30 by 20. We want 2 midshipman hitches at each of the wing and tail rings, and we want the bola knot at each of the ground anchors. We didn't account for any extra rope margin for each of the ropes. Snubber use is going to be off, and we had the aft push at 0 inches. So for the total buffer that we're actually going to need for the ropes, so for each rope, we're going to need a wing and tail ring knot buffer of 36 inches, a ground anchor knot buffer of 22 inches for a total of 58 extra inches in order to tie the knot configurations that we want. So if we come here and we go to left rope, right rope, and tail rope, you're going to see some data that has been computed. So the raw geometric length is 87.9 inches. And what does that mean? So if we go back to our diagram, so basically a direct line from the ground anchor right to the ring, I mean the actual three-dimensional distance of that rope, of the distance between the two rings, is going to be 87.9 inches. We're going to add, though, because if we just had an 87.9 inch piece of rope, that would get us from ring to ring, but then we would have nothing left to tie the knots. And so we have to add 58 inches of rope so we can then tie our knots. So our minimum required rope length will be 145.9 inches, 12 foot, 1.9 inches. And so we recommend that you would then round up for all of these. So you could see the recommended pre-cut rope length would be 13 feet for the left wing, 13 feet for the right wing, and 10 feet for the tail rope. And you're also going to see some tension ranges. So if you have something like a small pull scale, or maybe if you like to go fishing, trout fishing, bass fishing, whatever the case may be, and you use a scale for that, that's very helpful here. Or maybe luggage, a small pull scale for luggage. So anyway, if you go halfway down the rope, so go to the midpoint of the rope, and what you can do, so between the knots, right in the middle, if you can then put the scale on the rope and deflect the rope 2 inches and read what the scale says. If that scale says somewhere in between 0.9 and 1.4 pounds, that's a good target, because that means you've put on about 10 to 15 pounds of preloaded rope tension. That's a good range. Over that amount, you're getting a little too banjo tight at that point, banjo string tight. And you'll probably push that above 15 pounds. And obviously, we want to make sure that we don't have too tight a rope so it doesn't, put stress on the airframe on the negative G side. And then we have the guidance on the other side is too loose. We don't want it too loose either, because then that could create slack and give a running head start for our wings. And so kind of gives us some helpful guidance there. But again, you would need a pull scale in order to make these deflection readings and kind of see where you are in the tension range. Would love comments on the tension range and kind of what you all like to see as far as tension goes. How you, a lot of people look at the, the 2-finger theory, that you should be able to just, take 2 fingers and just deflect the rope an inch or so, whatever the case may be. I think that's not as exact, and I think this using a pull scale will give you a much more targeted and definitive reading as far as where your rope tension actually is. So now you're ready. You're like, okay, I'm good. How do I remember all this stuff? I want to, take this to the store to get some rope, or whatever the case may be. Or I want to go shopping online for rope. Well, all you have to do is then come to this download PDF results button. So we're going to go ahead and hit that. And then we're going to go ahead. I've just downloaded it. And I'm going to go ahead and open it for us. And so this is the PDF that you'll get, and you can print it out, do whatever you want with it. But it shows us our calculation inputs, kind of what we've done: 2 midshipman hitches, bowline knots, 30 by 20, Cessna 172. Everything that we did on the calculator results screen is going to show here. So you can see total buffer added, shows us 13 foot for the left wing, 13 foot for the right wing, the tail rope 10 foot. Also gives us our tension ranges as well, so you'll have some documentation of that. All right, so I really hope you guys have enjoyed this video on the aircraft tie-down rope calculator put together by RampWarden. If you haven't seen it, come check it out. RampWarden.com, and leave us some comments on as you use it, and let us know what you think. Thank you again.